Rana is a student-made puzzle/platformer game where you play as a frog hopping its way through a temple. You chug some water from the little wells that are dotted around and spray it at various objects to help yourself get through the levels. There are moving platforms, blocks, and shiny blue frog statues. The statues, when sprayed, tell you the story of Rana, the god of rain, who was a frog as well. The game was graphically sound, a few rough edges here and there, and a bit of clipping happened with the camera and your frog character, but it was mostly pretty sturdy. Controls wise, there aren't really a lot, just WASD to move and left click to spit water. The camera rotation with the mouse felt a little heavy, but again it was alright. There was a bit where I needed to make a big jump and I wasn't sure what to do since the game never really explained any of the controls, but I just risked it by moving forwards, and the game auto-detected the jump length. I was a little worried it might overshoot on some of the platforms, but luckily they got that measured out just right. There was one platform that I was pretty certain I could make the jump on, but apparently the game decided no. Also, I need to point out the irony of a frog jumping into water and dying. I get it's a water-based temple, but if you need a hazard, I'm sure you can think of something. Or just make an inconvenience, like a pit you have to find stairs to get out of or something. The music was nice, and it did change for each room, which was a good touch. Usually games just commit to one soundtrack all the way through, especially shorter games. But they made the effort, which was nice to see. The levels were really nicely designed, there were some good visuals at the starts of levels where you could see overviews, and the little effects and wall decorations were nice touches to give it a temple-y feel. The puzzles weren't overly hard, and if there was any difficulty, luckily it didn't come at the fault of the controls, since that's a big offender for difficult puzzles. There was one occasion where some of the frog statues were on isolated platforms, and I was sure I probably should have had to find a way to get to them, but I just hit them from another platform at a distance and that worked too. Not sure if that was what I was meant to do, but it worked either way. It was sometimes a little tricky to get the blue frogs to accept your spray. There were a couple of times I hit them and the story didn't start, so I just had to alter my angle and try and get head on with them for it to work, but I found that more at close range. Distance was usually okay. The game did lag a few times, mostly when the camera would clip through the water stream falling into the well. I guess the game didn't think it would need to handle that very much. The story itself was quite nice, and followed the style of the kinds of stories you usually hear about gods and precious items, but it wasn't too cliché and it was short and to the point while still being interesting. I spotted one spelling mistake, and the font was a little plain in choice compared to the quite stylised background it was on. Maybe a softer font or something a bit more in theme with the game would have looked better. But that's a really minor point out of any I could make, so not too much criticism for that. To sum up, it's a short and sweet game with nice visuals and sound. Though, as said, it is a little rough with clipping and lag and graphic smoothness, but that doesn't make it unplayable. It doesn't really affect the controls of the game, which is a key thing for me. Duncan and the Wisp, which I've done a previous review on, had decent graphics, but the controls were poor to say the least. And that's way more damning than looking a bit rough and playing absolutely fine. I'm more about function than aesthetic. I got through the game in about half an hour, so it is over quick, but it's fun for a short time solving puzzles. Overall, I'll give Rana a 6.5 out of 10.